Well, good morning, all you folks out there in YouTube land. It's deja vu all over again. Here I am again doing another group of videos for this channel, which is titled Think for a Change. And for those of you for whom this may be your first video, the title of all of these videos, this whole series, this is the second part of the series, title is Reason and Beyond, which also happens to be, strangely enough, title of my latest book, which, by the way, is now available, is now in print. So I'm going to hold up a copy here and show you what it looks like. Pretty snazzy cover, huh? It's called Reason and Beyond, and the subtitle is Knowledge, Belief, and Spiritual Transformation. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, as well as a number of other websites. It's available in paperback and ebook, ebook they call it. And then I had two earlier books also available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. It's called that the From the Christ Mind series, Book 1 and Book 2. And those books are linked to A Course in Miracles. For those of you who are familiar with A Course, Course is a profound spiritual teaching, and it is from the mind of Jesus of Nazareth. It has been around about 40 years, and the From the Christ Mind books are meant to be a later day supplement, and they are from the same source. I did not write those books. I was just given the assignment to scribe them, and I scribe as sort of a collaboration, you may say, between myself and the mind of Jesus. And they were written in the last 6-7 years. These three books have been done. All right, and the series has, for each video, it has a theme, which I draw from my latest book. But they're basic spiritual themes, which I think relate to just about all spiritual teaching, all profound and authentic spiritual teaching. These are fundamental ideas or themes of spiritual life, and I would say of human life in general. Now, the first set of videos, I'm just going to sketch in the time frame here, were done in May and June of 2018. And this group of videos, I think I may just do a few, may do a few more than that, we'll see, as I'm guided. We're doing these videos in August of 2019. And I think before I begin, I thought we'd maybe spend about 30 seconds to a minute just in silence together. Just close our eyes. Yeah, open your mind, close your eyes, and we're just going to get real relaxed so that we're all on the same page. So just go ahead and relax. Relax your body and your mind. And just let the cares of the day drop away for just a little while. Okay, I feel like I'm ready to begin. Now the title, or the theme for today's video is responsibility. And let me begin as well, again for those of you who may not have seen the earlier videos, that what these videos are, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to just bring a message. And it's a message that many people are bringing from different spiritual traditions, religious traditions, perhaps humanist traditions. And each of us brings a message in our own way. We sort of come from our own angle, but I think we all have the same fundamental motivation or purpose to help, to offer something helpful. And again, from that perspective, the message I bring, I just suggest to the viewer, if you've been drawn to listen to this, to watch this video, to just relax and open your mind and just sort of gently listen to what's being said. You may not agree with it, or you may agree with some of it. May sound true, some of it may not. And I just want to again make the point, it is not my intention or not my responsibility. I don't have the right to try and persuade you or convince anybody to believe anything. I do have the right, however, to speak my mind, and that's what I'm doing. As I said, bringing the message. I am, as many are, spiritually guided to do these videos, to try and be helpful at this time. Because at this time what we really need is as many of us as possible. Just trying to be helpful in every sense to our fellow human beings, helpful to other living creatures, and just helpful to planet Earth. All right. Now, responsibility is the theme. And responsibility is, it's simply a fundamental theme of human life, is it not? It is, you could say, a kind of requirement for human life. It's a requirement that's contingent upon all of us. And our society and our simple humanity asks us, or even requires us, to be responsible in our behavior, in our actions, with our words, to be responsible in all our interactions with other human beings, with other living beings, and with the planet itself, to be responsible to our society, obeying its laws, fulfilling anything it may require of us, like filing taxes or any other sort of civic duties, whatever, that are required or asked of us. Responsibility is a fundamental theme in human life. In fact, you could say that it is, in a sense, are not extending the concept of responsibility for what we do, not extending that to all the life around us and to the planet itself that contributes to the damage that we are doing to Mother Earth, to the ground beneath our feet. And I may talk about that later or on another video. I talk about that quite a bit in my latest book. So responsibility in the human sense. Now we think of that as acting rightly, morally, ethically towards others, as being respectful in our speech and our behavior towards our neighbor, towards people in our family, towards friends, towards people where we work, towards anywhere where we have an interaction with other human beings. And that is good, and that is real good, and that is required of all of us. But when I talk about responsibility, I'm taking it a bit further. There's another step to take. And this is part of spiritual life. Again, the book Reason and Beyond has a spiritual basis. I have spiritual themes and ideas mixed throughout the book, as well as more, let's say, themes, ideas, writings directed just at other aspects of our human life. But the core of the book and the core of the message that I bring is fundamentally spiritual, because at this time, it seems to many of us that is what is required for us as human beings, to take another step and look at life from that higher, that more complete, that more whole, more holistic perspective. So what does responsibility mean in the spiritual sense? Well, in the spiritual sense, it means I am responsible for all my thoughts, all my emotions, all my feelings, as well as my actions and my words. And that no matter what happens, for example, what seems to happen to me, a situation, an event, something another human being may seem to do to me, no matter what happens, the feelings that are aroused right in my mind, in my heart, it's all one movement, those feelings are my responsibility. Another way to put it, when you accept responsibility in the spiritual sense, you give up the idea of blaming others, you give up the idea of guilt or of seeing other people as bad, and you give up the idea of judgment in the sense of condemnation. And you recognize, the core to this whole idea, this whole practice of responsibility in the spiritual sense, is not to blame others, not to judge, and to forgive. And to forgive, perhaps I will do a whole other video on forgiveness. That's a big theme. But to forgive others, to forgive a situation, means not to blame, not to get upset. Now, on the other hand, we can't help as human beings if someone seems to do something to us that really kind of injures us or offends us or hurts us, or someone we know, or maybe other human beings. We cannot help, of course, but judge or react very often with anger, judgment. Some situations bring up fear, etc., depression, sadness. There's all kinds of emotional reactions that can happen and that do happen within the human system as a response to the various events of our lives, the various things that surround us and impinge upon our life, that affect our life. Now, it's almost inevitable that we will respond at times, of course, with some anger, some upset, some fear. I'm not saying that we are to suppress or hold back, or that those reactions or feelings are bad. No, that's just part of the human mind. But what the spiritual perspective does is it recognizes, say someone does something to me, recognizes that as I get angry at them, that I'm responsible for that anger. It recognizes that at some level, very, very quickly, usually below the threshold of conscious awareness, that I am choosing that emotion. It recognizes that, and it also recognizes that it is much better for me, for the individual involved, for my life, and just for life in general, it is better for me to let that anger go, to let that judgment go, to forgive, to let that emotional charge that I'm now carrying in my system, to just let that go. Now that's what we call, in a very fundamental sense, I could describe forgiveness as the release of any emotional charge I may have in my mind, my energy, my feelings towards a particular person or event or situation, to release that, to release all judgment, and to feel at peace again, at peace with that individual. Now, of course, what I'm also talking about is love. Forgiveness is an example. It is from a certain perspective, forgiveness, the Course in Miracles describes forgiveness as the highest expression of love here in this space-time, earth existence that we are experiencing. And again, from that standpoint, because love is all important, and so many of us recognize that, whether we're living a spiritual life, or whether we're living on a more simply human level, a worldly level, nonetheless, love is something that's very important, and it functions to some degree or another. It is active in just about everybody's life. And what I'm talking about here in spiritual life is that we want to bring that love, We want to bring it out. We want to bring it out completely, unconditionally. Now, we could say, again, from the standpoint of truth, the standpoint of the spiritual reality of what you are, your spiritual core, that love, that unconditional love, which is God's love, is a part of us. It is just there waiting. And I know I'm kind of moving around a lot here, but everything's kind of connected, so if you can stay with me. Spiritual life is, among other things, it is a process of healing everything in our mind and heart that is not love. In other words, we do not have to go looking for love or find it somewhere or dig it up or do something to deserve it. That love is waiting deep within us at our spiritual core, and in order to find that love, in order to liberate it and set it free, we have to become aware of, seek out everything that obstructs its presence in us. So that's one of the fundamental aspects of spiritual life, and it is described somewhat different ways by different traditions, but I would say one way or another, that is a part of virtually every spiritual path. And at this time it is so important for all of us. So okay, let's get back to responsibility. So we want to be completely responsible, totally responsible, in a total human sense and a total spiritual sense. What we need to do is become aware of our mind, of our thoughts, the whole thinking process, which is constantly in motion. We need to become aware of our feelings, our emotions, even our feeling states. Become aware of the impulses and the desires that arise within us. We need to become aware of our reactions to things, and also the interpretations we place on our perceptions. And we need to become aware of our values, what we value, what we don't, aware of what we like and what we don't like. See, the human mind, in a fundamental sense, moves between a number of opposites. It moves between the opposite of attraction and aversion, right? Like and dislike. We need to become aware of that. We need to take responsibility for that. And that is a whole process that requires great willingness, requires mindfulness, being present moment to moment, and you could say a lot of soul searching. Because when you really begin to pay attention to your mind, just by being present with it, you really begin to discover your mind and yourself as you are. You go beyond the image of yourself as you have and the ideas you have about yourself, and you start to see yourself more as you really are, which is real important. Because I cannot take responsibility for my thoughts and feelings and emotions and actions if I'm not really aware of them right when they happen, and that response, if I'm just kind of acting them out because I believe in them, or unconsciously because it's habitual. Guess I'm covering a lot of ground here, so let me just take a sip of water, slow down for a minute. In other words, responsibility is actually it's all of a piece. It requires very, very much from us, and there's just no way around it. And at this time, I think I'm going to relate responsibility now to what we can do, to be helpful at this particular time in our history, to be helpful to the others around us, to our fellow human beings, life around us, to be helpful to our society, locally, or on the national level, and just to be helpful to the human race as a whole. This is actually one of the themes in my latest book. gonna use an idea that came up way back in the 60s. Those of you who are old enough to remember, back in the 60s we had a time of great turmoil. And there was a slogan someone came up with, which I think is appropriate here. We are either, as individuals, part of the solution to the problems we see around us, fear, the hatred, the anger, the division, the suffering, or we are part of the problem. And it really is one of those, particularly today, when things are so intense, there is so much division, so much tension among human beings, between nations, between groups, between religions, between ethnic groups, races, etc. It is very, very important. Again, this is the message I'm trying to bring, as are many others, for as many of us as possible to just stand up and be counted, to do our best to be part of the solution to the immense problems that surround us, the things that are going on today. And anybody who's paying attention, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is a very intense time in human history. And so we need as much positive goodwill, love, and you call it right action, right attitude, in as many people as possible. Because you will see, again, you look at it as an individual human being, and you think, what can I do? What can I do to really change things? Just take one example, the degradation of the environment, the destruction that we are visiting upon Mother Earth. And it's clear that one of us, we can't stop it, we can't do much. However, and here's where I want to go to what is the root of all human problems. It's where human problems begin and where they are solved. All human, what we call problems, everything that we do starts in our mind, doesn't it? With what we think, what we believe, what we feel. From that comes our words and our actions, our relationships, our contributions or lack of it to all the life around us. Okay? So the problems that we face, both individually and as collectively, they all have their beginning in the human mind. And therefore, the solution, really, if you dig deep enough, is also in the human mind. You could say, again, our problems begin in the human mind because of the fear, the anger, the hatred, the judgment, and the selfishness, the self-centeredness, that colors human life. That's where the problems begin. And the solution is also in our minds, and the solution is love, kindness, helpfulness, joy, positivity. So I'll describe this, stumbling around here, I'll describe this as just a suggestion I'm making to those who want to join us in this, is that the suggestion I make is that each of us can become part of the solution by committing ourselves to getting to know our own minds, our own thoughts, our feelings, by learning to take responsibility for them, by doing our best, again, to forgive, to not carry grievances, to be kind, and thus opening up to that movement of love and kindness within us, which is that which is highest in the human being. And then do our best to live from there. None of us are perfect, but I'm just suggesting, even asking, hoping that as many of us as possible, many have already made the commitment, but just keep trying, and those who maybe haven't yet or not consciously, I'm asking, if you want, you can join us in that, so that we live in a state of harmony with our fellow human beings, with the life around us, with the life of the planet, and so that we we become, each of us, centers of goodwill, of love and kindness and forgiveness and helpfulness in our words, in our actions, our thoughts, even our vibrations, our vibrational energy. We are radiating a kind of energy out all around us. And this is the message I bring. And this is the message I bring. And to do this, to try and act this way, is to take complete responsibility for who you are as a human being and as a spiritual being. And to recognize that, I think as it says in the New Testament, I am my brother's keeper, and I'm my sister's keeper too, and I am the earth's keeper. Okay, all right, I think that's enough. I was moving around a lot, but these themes are all kind of intertwined. So I thank you. I think it's time for me to stop. I thank you for joining me, for sharing your time with me, for your sense of goodwill and willingness to listen. And I hope I get to see you again. Thank you so much. God bless us, each and every one.